It takes a really long time for research in cognitive science to become common knowledge. In the meantime, myths about human learning can persist. In the words of Mark Twain, it can sometimes be easier to fool someone than to convince them that they've been fooled. In this case, it can be difficult to know fact from fiction. It is important for us to be able to recognize and debunk common learning myths that we might encounter. Learning myths sabotage our learning or instruction if we're providing to others. Throughout history, we've held on to beliefs that were later disproven. For example, up until recently, the 1980s, we believed that babies did not feel pain. Surgeries were performed on babies without anesthesia. Scientists have learned a lot about how humans learn, especially in the last 2 decades. This has led to many myths that have been debunked or misconceptions that have been uncovered about the way we learn. Learning styles are a popular topic in teaching and learning. People usually label themselves as either visual learners or kinesthetic learners or auditory learners. What do you think? Is this an example of a learning principle or a myth? It turns out learning styles are a myth, meaning there's no scientific backing for their belief. There's no evidence that you should use learning styles to tailor your teaching. In fact, research reveals we benefit from being taught in a style that's different than the one we believe we're innately better at. If you thought learning styles were true, well, you're not alone. Over 90% of people believe in learning styles, including well over half of educators. But the fact is, learning should be tailored to the content, not the learner. Consider this. Say you're a verbal learner. Does that mean the best way for you to learn to play soccer is by listening to it? Probably not. What about this popularly held belief about left brain versus right brain? It implies that some people are more left brain dominant and are more analytical, are more fact-driven, logical, while others are more right brain dominant and are more creative, artistic, and subjective. Is this a learning principle or a myth? It turns out this popularly held belief is not supported in any scientific research either. Traits like creativity and analytical thinking are not found in specific locations of our brain. If you thought that was true, you're not alone. A recent study found that over 60% of people believe this myth. We all cling on to these outdated beliefs because they resonate with us and they help us simplify things. But believing those myths can be dangerous, especially for you if you're an educator. In this video, I've covered a few learning myths. In a future video, we'll look at memory myths. For now, I'd like to ask yourself if any of these myths were familiar to you. Did you come across any that surprised you? If you have a child, talk to them about common myths about learning. This is a valuable conversation that can help uncover what assumptions your child holds and which may be based on common misunderstanding about the human brain.